What's up, y'all? Shuffle. We're here with the long-awaited tier list for Darkest Dungeon 2, The Kingdoms updates. And we're going to go through everyone. Some things are going to change compared to Confessions because there are a few other things to consider, such as defending inns, the new enemy types, the Beastmen, and access to things like paths, because you can't get paths right away, so you have to like have an investment and stuff, but that's kind of a footnote. We're mostly focusing on fighting Beastmen themselves. We still have to go through the other 5, 6, 7 regions now also. That's what we're focusing on. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, leave your thoughts below in the comments, be civil. If you want to support the channel, check out the links in the box below. If you want to join the community, it's there too. Abomination, no surprise, is S tier. Is he S for Confessions? Remains to be seen. Let's talk about why he's good in Kingdoms. With Abomination, there are a few things to look at. So obviously Wander is just a very well-balanced path, but talking about Wander, what does Abomination have that really helps us in fighting Beastmen and succeeding in Kingdoms? The first, Manacles, because being able to pull like crit and strength specifically, a lot of the Beastmen can just get strength from, you know, their friends or from Tribe Caller. Being able to get rid of that is super handy, and getting rid of crit for other stuff is obviously really good. Backlash upgraded. Also the combo, actually. The combo here is super important, and being able to disrupt everything is just really good. Backlash. Not amazing by itself. Like, the damage is okay, but being able to block incoming damage is really helpful because they just tend to hit pretty hard, so being able to just generate block on demand is really good. The other thing, the knockback is nice in controlling them because a lot of their attacks change entirely depending on position, like the Huntsman and the Tribe Callers that we'll talk about later. They specifically target the front or back depending on where they're at, so you can kind of corral them. The stun, super important. So having access to combo and having stun is incredibly important in Kingdoms for 2 reasons. The first, we take a look at the Huntsman. 10 stun res. The Tribe Walker, 10 stun res. The Rawclaw, 75 ouchie. The Tribe Caller, 10 stun res. If you're unaware, they have this enrage mechanic, like all of them do. They all get this, where they have different trigger conditions, and each stack of the enrage token makes them do bonus damage. When they hit 3 enrage tokens and the turn ends, the start of the next turn, they get Berserk, which is the bigger version of the token. With Berserk, they take no on-hit damage, unless they have vulnerable or something else, like a combo effect. They take no on-hit damage. Their damage over time res jumps up by 20, but damage over time does full damage to them. So if you have it on them before, or if you play it that turn before they act, they still take the damage. Enrage enables them to have super attacks. So they use Brutal Edge for Huntsman. Instead of hitting one person, like the Splitting Edge up here, it hits both. Crit rate is massive, hits super hard. You have to remember this scales up in escalation. Same with Brutal Reach, it hits both. Tribe Walker gets Foul Deed instead of Foul Play. Hits both frontliners, hits harder, blights. Just don't want to get hit by that. And then Outrage can, you know, crit and stun people, cause stress. This can crit for like 8 damage when, you know, they're buffed up and all that. So probably higher. Like if they have strength, it's escalation 3, it hits really hard. Tribe Caller. Violent Sky is one of the most dangerous moves to get hit by, especially when you start having fatigue, because that's 18 points of blight, and if you already have, you know, no upgrades for health or anything, no food, and you're already down, you know, a little bit on fatigue, you're at like 30 HP, right? 18 points of blight plus a random crit from this dude are almost an instant kill in some conditions, so you gotta be careful. The thing to note though, what I'm talking about Berserk specifically, is on their turn with Berserk, if they are stunned, they don't use the attack. Whether they use it or not, the next turn they get debuffed. Either they get dazed, vulnerable, weakened, some combination of those. If they are stunned, they never get to do the super attack. So they're going to get debuffed either way. Like, it just goes away. So meaning being able to stun them, which is very easy to do, saves you a lot of the time from having to take massive damage. Same with blind, but blind isn't as consistent. That's why stun is so important, and you're going to see that reflected here. So being able to have Abomination, someone that can stun pretty reliably with manacles, is just good to have. The other stuff he has, you know, they have pretty good blight res, so Beast Bile, Ichor aren't the best, but this does spread combo, which can help other people. Absolution keeps him very healthy, so he can just kind of tank Beastmen very reliably on his own. And then finally, you have access to Rake. So if you want to just start cleaving them down, like turn one, just transform, start beating them down, you can. Range does more damage against vulnerable targets, like just flat damage. The Beastmen don't get access to block, or at least usually. And having them potentially give themselves vulnerable means you can hit them very hard. And Maul, not really useful there. Slam to reposition them is pretty helpful. And Instinct, incredibly powerful. So it removes riposte. Those tribe walkers have riposte. This gets rid of it. It can give them double vuln. Helps you kill them with other people, or you can use rage next turn and kill them. Apply on crit daze. You can actually try and get 2 dazes into stun. If they daze themselves off of Berserk, then you can stun them again. But crit with Instinct stuns them as well. So if you high roll and you get lucky, and you crit them, they skip that turn. Hopefully it's a Berserk turn. Incredibly good. In terms of the paths that he has, so with Unchained here, still good. You know, using manacles for being able to combo them and stuff, but doesn't get rid of like strength and crit. Backlash, you're not looking for blight synergy that often, and really that's all you have going for it. So, and Absolution's okay. The thing here is that Unchained isn't the greatest path for that fight. Fiend, pretty good though. Bleed res, pretty good to use, or bleed damage, pretty good to use. So you can stack up bleed with this. Plus, being in beast mode, you get 3 extra speed. Speed is very important when fighting beastmen, because they really leverage advantage against you by wearing you down with like blight, weaken, and riposte. Those are the things you're fighting against the most. So you want to make sure that you're not just always behind. So that's why beast form getting 3 speed is really good. Having bleed, very helpful. Does pretty good damage. Rage against a bleeding target does a good amount of damage. Maul is okay. And then Instinct can shuffle them, which you don't always want to do, but still not bad to have access to. So Fiend is okay. And Fiend has like the base human kit, so in a lot of ways it's comparable. Moribund is very stress focused. The Beastmen don't do a ton of stress. Like they're more damage centric. They do stress, but not usually too worried about that when fighting them. So Moribund is still good. It functions, but Moribund also wants Instructress pretty bad. So I don't recommend Moribund that much in Kingdoms. Not saying it can't win. Not saying it's not good. Just don't recommend it. You still get the base human kit too. So with that in mind, we have to consider Abomination as a top tier class, specifically because it seems like he's built to fight them. Doesn't feel that way at first glance because of Blight, but you know, gets to go past the Blight synergy, or you get to ignore it. The next one, Bounty Hunter. So I don't have the Kingdom's Crossroads where he's put up because I don't want to have to jump back and like go back for paths and all that because they don't appear in Kingdoms. But the long story short is Bounty Hunter is good for pretty much the same reasons that Abomination is. He is able to apply combo. Combo's very good for pretty much everyone in this mode. He has access to no setup stuns against enemies with low stun resist. So uppercut, no escape. Can use them on turn 1, totally fine. That's for balancing purposes. You don't really want them on turn 1 anyway. Turn 2 and 3, that's usually when enrage happens. So being able to go through that and hit them pretty hard is very nice. He also has guard. Guard is nice to protect specific people because, as I said, the Beastmen are very specific in targeting outside of the Rock Claw. Being able to guard your friends is always good. Mark for Death, amazing, and decent reach with Finish Him, synergizes with other stuns and daze. So it's like if a Beastman drops out of Enrage, gives itself Daze and Vulnerable, guess what? Finish Him's just gonna do a ton of damage against that. So he has a lot of control tools, he has some pretty accessible damage, and he's tanky enough where he's just a good fit. Like, every team that I've run Bounty Hunter in Kingdom so far, he's performed incredibly. Highly recommend. Next, Crusader. Unfortunate. Actually, I gotta get rid of this tier 2, because I'm not using this in this video. There's too much discrepancy. Or there's not enough discrepancy. Crusader B tier. Let's take a look at why. So Crusader, it's not that he's bad in this at all. He's actually got some good stuff. Like, low burn res means that Zealous is okay, right? He can heal and stress heal, which are good. He can get rid of weaken. He might actually be A. Maybe I'm undervaluing this. With Stunning Blow, he has access to a stun. He gets rid of crit and strength. So actually, he's got a lot of good stuff going for him. He's probably higher, right? And Smite combo bonus damage. The main issue here with Crusader is that against Beastmen, surprisingly, Taunt is less effective. The reason being, their targeting is so strict. You know, like if a Huntsman's in the back, it only hits the back 2. If it's in the front, it only hits the front 2. So he can't taunt from the front and protect the back from Huntsman, for example. And the other thing too is having defensive tokens, like multiple block generated. Huntsmen have a very, very annoying capability where they are able to destroy positive tokens on their super attacks and stuff. So if you have multiple block, or if you have strength and you're starting to like compile tokens, they can just knock all of that defense off and you're just stuck with like your regeneration, which still isn't bad, but it does hurt people that can't generate block constantly, like Leper, Man-at-Arms. So in the case of Crusader, where he gets all of his buffs at the same time, they just get knocked out. So kind of unfortunate. This goes for stuff like Tenacity. He's got other various buffs and stuff floating around that it doesn't work against, so unfortunate. Guard, though, very good against Beastmen for the other reason, the fact that you can't just snipe everyone's guard token off by hitting the guard. Without a skill, obviously. But yeah, so you could argue he's A. He's probably A. I'll probably move him up, but just to go through what he has access to, like the stun removal, or the crit and strength removal, and the stun on combo, both very good for reasons already stated. Having access to healing is really nice. You know, stress healing, bulwark's okay still. And the enemy likes to hit you with weaken, mostly, so being able to remove that isn't bad either. The main issue with Crusader is two things. One is he can only heal HP in the front unless you change his pass, so you have to get Banneret if you really want to access that consistently. And the other is he has 2 speed. Abomination can bump his speed up by transforming. Bounty Hunter, kind of in the same boat, but he requires less setup to, you know, lock down enemies. So with Crusader, what ends up happening is he's going after all the enemies already gone, so all the damage has gone out. You know, the stress has gone out. You might be stunned from a random crit, whatever. And he's always playing catch up. His damage isn't great. He's not really a good target for combo token damage with Smite. He's really just eating combo tokens for stuns. So he kind of struggles. Like, if he's the solo healer of the group, like no one else has great healing or items or whatever, he falls behind, because what ends up happening is with this 10 blight resist against those tribe caller shamans that are hitting you for 4 and 6 blight every turn, mostly, alongside the rest of the cast, like blight is historically pretty low outside of a few units, right? We just see 30, 20, and a couple 40s and 50s, you know, for the other characters, but like blight is not a high resist generally, which means that a lot of these blights stick and you're gonna get crushed by damage over time. So you have someone that's kind of reactive, a bit slow, and he's gonna struggle healing. But if you're using him just to like stun things, maybe stress heal, and, you know, remove weaken or whatever, then he's okay. But I say all that like it's really bad. He's still probably A. If I can bring it back up here. So I'll move him up a little bit for now. Duelist. One of the worst characters in the mode, kind of sad. She's not bad on defense. Duelist already kind of struggles. I think we're getting to the point where a lot of people are thinking, you know, is she just really complex? Is that why, you know, she seems not great? Do I just not get it? And as time's going on, she just isn't amazing. Which is unfortunate because she's really fun. Does that mean she's bad and you can never take her? No, it doesn't mean that at all. With Wanderer, you know, she has Flick. They don't buff themselves with defensive tokens. Like the Beastmen are just gas pedal to the floor, full offense. The riposte is okay, but like half the time they're enraged, so you're riposting into things that take 0 damage. Disengage, surprisingly good because you get rid of riposte on the enemy. Very nice. You don't want to move them around too much because tribe walkers, if they're there, they get enraged every time they move. So moving one of them around, they get like an enraged token. If you move 2 of them, they swap places, they both get enraged. So it's not the greatest for her. Yeah, meditation to dodge tank, which is pretty helpful against like enrage attacks, but enrage attacks tend to hit multiple people anyway, so it's like she's only defending herself. You know, there's just not a whole lot of good stuff going for her. The only really great thing she has access to is that she has 6 speed. That's very helpful. So she can get her turn early. She can actually get her damage out before she has to do anything. But also, you kind of don't want to go into a stance because the Beastmen just kind of ramp up so fast that taking a turn to set up a stance is almost not worth it unless you have like mastered meditation or like mastered flesh. Like you open with flesh, that's a good opener. But other than that, she doesn't really have too much else going for her. Coup de grace, ignoring weaken is okay. Block doesn't matter. Execution 1 doesn't matter because the Rock Claws have 2 death armor, I think. They don't have 1. And everyone else has no death armor. So it's like she doesn't have too much going there. Instructress is not a bad path. You have to buy it, obviously, because you get the bonus damage off again. So Instructress is okay. Antagonist, having the debuffs is actually pretty good. I would argue this is her best path for this, just because weaken, very helpful. Not very helpful. It's helpful enough until Escalation 3 when the additive math comes in and everyone tries to say, hey, it's 140% damage down to 90. That's minus 50%, or you do this other math and it's 35% or whatever. No, it's still 10%. You start at 100. Doesn't matter what mathematical equation goes through the middle. You end at 90. That is 10%. While I'm saying on that, I'm not arguing that. Anyway, weaken's still pretty helpful. You can counter their strength. That's probably the best benefit of it, is it counters their strength tokens. And then you get vuln, which is still helpful. And what else changes here? The boot gets a stun, right? So that's actually pretty good. You have to be in the stance. They have to have a combo, but not too hard to pull off. And coup de grace giving a ton of debuffs and stun on combos. So antagonist actually isn't bad at all. So I would definitely say if you're going to run Duelist, try and get antagonist, get one of the ends as cheap path costs, like down to 24 or whatever it is, and then give her this. Give her antagonist. Intrepid, it's too gambly. You know, the thing with Intrepid is that You dodge, you get buffs. You're in a stance, you get different buffs. You get hit, you have different penalties, you know. And with how hard they hit, both on hit and how hard or how strong the blight can be, you don't want to lower your dot res. You don't want to get hit by, you know, an enraged, boosted attack, you know, like from any of them. You just don't want to get hit by that. It's too damaging. So Intrepid, and then again the thing with Riposte too, like you can dodge tank and it's alright, but you get those penalties. But then also riposting enemies isn't as strong in this mode. So really I think Duelist just straight up struggles. And I'm at the point, I think she's probably the worst character in the mode. Where, you know, people can argue whatnot, sure, but whatever. Alright. Flagellant, this is a tough one. I'm going to put him in A. And there's a few reasons. Because with Flag here... I'm on the wrong character, but with Flag... He's a Blight-based character. Blight doesn't do too well versus Beastmen. And Taunt's not the best thing. Although Mormore's still great at keeping him alive, Taunt's not the most busted thing. It's still a great move. It's kind of hard to rate that too. He's really good at keeping teammates alive though, because he has a ton of life, and his final stat upgrade, which I don't have it in front of me, but when you can upgrade hero stats in Kingdoms because you don't get access to the altar buffs, his final stat unlock is when he hits Death's Door, he heals allies for 25% of their life. This is what he had in Darkest Dungeon 1. And when he dies, he has a chance to stun every enemy. He also had that in Darkest Dungeon 1. Stuns are good against Beastmen. Being able to heal the team on demand against a group of enemies that like to cleave you down over and over and just have really good burst damage, not bad either. So if you get his final stat upgrade, he's actually a really good support unit of all things. Like I said, the Blight, not too impactful. Block's a good token to have if you have like Lash's Gift. Corpse control, only really good for controlling where they're standing. You don't really care about the corpse interaction. Suffer gets useful because they do a lot of Blight and sometimes bleed. Sepsis, not going to stick that often. Necrosis, like everything else isn't that great. Undying's pretty good. Maniac, they don't really throw negative tokens at you besides Weaken. The double Weaken on Acid Rain can be okay. Sepsis, throwing negative tokens on them isn't too bad, but you're just throwing Weaken most of the time anyway. And then Maniac's Lash, I was trying to find it here. Maniac Lash is okay too, because it keeps him alive and it keeps Weaken off your other people. So that's actually pretty good. Not the best, but still pretty good. Exanimate, borderline unplayable. At least for defending and fighting Beastmen. You can still run it in the other areas, but, you know, since there's so many regions you have to go through, your chance of finding death is much higher, especially later on, because in higher escalations, there's just more combat. There are more resistance nodes, more road fights. Death gets a higher and higher chance to appear. It gets harder to dodge her compared to Confessions, where it's pretty easy with, you know, most runs to limit your chance of seeing her very much. So, Exanimate, pretty much unplayable in my opinion. Scourge, good deathless. Suffer and Lash, not terrible. Accidentally clicked off, but Suffer and Lash, not terrible. Still not great moves by themselves. And going Toxic doesn't serve you too much benefit. It's not bad. It's just not bad to have it, but it's not like, you know, Confessions where you go fight an Act boss, you go Toxic like 3 times, 4 times with Scourge, and they just start melting themselves. You know, you don't get that. With that in mind, Flag is still A. Mainly because he is great on defense. He is a great defensive unit just because he can keep other people alive, and him dying is pretty hard to pull off. Grave Robber, my queen, not good. Just not good in this mode. And it upsets me, but see, I'm being very impartial and fair in this analysis. Grave Robber's issues, low base damage on a lot of her stuff. Combos should be spent mostly for either resistance pen or stunning. For damage, it's okay. You know, if she does crit, you know, it's great. The issue with a lot of her stuff, they don't block. Let me double check this actually. Okay, so Rock Claws block, but the rest of them don't block. And since only one thing is blocking, you know, Pick to the Face doesn't really pull too much weight. Throw Dagger, they don't dodge, but you can ignore Riposte when stealth, not bad. Flashing, this is on Nightsworn. But Wanderer, okay, so you don't ignore Riposte here. So they don't dodge, they don't guard. You have little damage. They throw Weaken out all the time with the Huntsman. The damage they put out death stores you, so you're weakened all the time when you're fighting this stuff. So her little amounts of damage aren't great. The only real good thing with her is maybe she'll roll a damage quirk, or you heavily invest early and you just feed her mastery. You know, then she does okay early to mid game, but late game, not great. So yeah, corpse control, not great. You know, dodge tanking's okay. Really don't need execute, especially conditional execute. The dancing package is alright, but the thing that happens too in Kingdoms is for people like Grave Robber, where Wanderer, well, not Wanderer so much, but like the dancing abilities like Nightsworn and potentially Venom Drop kind of want synergy and things built around her. You don't get that option all the time. You might be fighting with Militia. They're not like, they accommodate, but they're not like, you know, built for you dancing. You have unlikely teams that just happen, right? Because you have to move people around constantly. You have to trade people in and out at times. So you're not going to be able to just send her somewhere with the perfect team to accommodate the dancing and stuff. So when you're looking at what she can do baseline, she has low damage that gets cut by Weaken. She has inconsistent crits, you know, with combo. And she has some blight and stuff. Like, she just doesn't have enough happening. And makes me sad. So I like her a lot, but she's definitely not good in Kingdoms. Hellion's surprisingly kind of good in Kingdoms, mainly because she has okay speed. And she can be kind of flexible in terms of targeting. You know, especially if you're avoiding the Ravagers of the world. You know, you don't want to stick her in rank 1. A lot of her starting kits give her Wicked Hack and either If It Bleeds or Iron Swan. They aren't terrible. Sometimes she gets Adrenaline Rush. You know, and I know people, I don't know, like, there are complaints about what she gets access to at the start, but I mean, some of it's fine. Like, it's good enough, you know, especially early, like on defense and whatnot. High on-hit damage is just good to have. So enemies that randomly vuln themselves, you know, she can hit them pretty hard. You can set up combos with a lot of characters just because you should be setting up combos, so she gets access to that and pretty good damage. But it's just really nice to have someone that can have this much reach. So if she's up front, you know, she can Wicked Hack Iron Swan. If she's in rank 2, she can Wicked Hack If It Bleeds. If It Bleeds is good enough just to fight Beastmen. You just jab them over and over for some good, you know, bleed damage, on-hit damage. Like 3 to 6 is okay. And then the extra bleed later, but, you know, it's good overall. And then she has Adrenaline Rush to keep herself alive. Later on, she can cure Blight with it. Toe-to-toe, Taunt's not that good, but you can keep her up front against Rock Claws. Howling In, fantastic. You know, just blow something the hell up. And if you do get her into Ravager, I mean, she's just going to crush. So, it's a really good unit overall. And, like I said, kind of tanky, self-healing, just really has everything you want. So, and her base resists are pretty good. So, 30 Blights, passable. Bleed shows up, so 30 Bleed's okay. So, she's pretty consistent. She'll do fine with militia, other heroes, you know, whatnot. So solid unit overall. And you can take her around through the biomes. Like, she's still good in the tundra, the new tundra, where the cultist enemies are. She's good in Sprawl. She's pretty good in the Fetter and Catacombs a bit. Like, she has quite a few places she's good. She kind of struggles in the Tangle because of block, but that's it. Next up. Some of these are going faster than I thought, which is good. Yeah, so next up is Highwayman. Another tough one to rate. I'm just going to leave him an A just because it feels like a decent space for him. But Highwayman has a couple really bad starting kits. Like, he'll start the run with, no joke, something that looks like this. Like that, actually not even pistol shot. He'll have like grape shot or something. You know, just like too many of these moves overlap, and he doesn't get access to like what his movement skills are. The token interaction with like highway robbery isn't amazing. You know, all that's okay. But thankfully, he does get access to stuns through pistol shot. Riposte, not a great thing to have in Kingdoms. He's decently fast at 5 speed. Double cross is surprisingly good because it blocks himself from all that big on hit damage, and you vulnerable the enemy. This vulnerable lets you do damage through in Berserk because additive property, so they still take like half damage, and he blocks himself, which can be helpful. Other than that, he doesn't have a whole lot going on. Like, Wicked Slice hits pretty good on hit. You don't need execution outside of Rock Claws. Open Vein is pretty good against fighting weakened tokens. So you don't really care about your on-hit damage. You're trying to stick bleeds. And being able to stick a decent bleed through combo is okay. But he's not honestly amazing. But the good part about Highwayman is he's pretty self-sufficient on damage, and he's very flexible on damage, so him wandering around into random teams, you know, that aren't built for him, he still can just drop in and do fine. And as far as paths go, Rogue, pretty not good. I mean, just the riposte focus of this is not what you want. Sharp Shot, good, but you lose access to Pistol Shot Stun, which isn't the greatest. As far as like double tap goes, like double tap plus sets combo on second shot, which is fine. So he's got some okay stuff there. Yellow Hands really wants bleed friends with it, but you're not always gonna have bleed friends with it, so it's not great. Only Rock Claws apply bleed anyway, so robbery mitigating that isn't huge, right? So it's just, he's only really strong on Surprisingly Wander and probably Sharp Shot. Actually, Rogue can still use the stunning pistol shot, so I guess that's not bad. Yeah. So he's A. You could actually argue B in this case, which the more I talk about it, I'm kind of thinking that. I don't know. Like, the early game for him is really hard too, because you want to, a lot of times you have to unlock skills, because everyone starts with like random stuff or regular starter sets if you're playing on like normal. So him needing to not only unlock some things, but being a damage dealer specialist, he kind of needs mastery too. You get a lot of mastery throughout the run. You can have like 100 or more mastery. Like, I've done that. But with him, you have to spend in parts early to get the skill unlock and the skill mastery, and you have to give him a bunch of stuff early, and you're constantly on the move, so he can't sit there and power up. I'm still going to leave an A just because he has access to stun, and he's still pretty flexible. Jester. A. What's going on with Jester? Oops. Yeah, so Jester A. I had the wrong screen up, but there you go. Jester A, and Jester has some okay starting sets. Like, he'll get Wit and Tune like almost all the time, and I think he sometimes gets Play Out, which is a weird one. Like, he gets one weird starter set that I don't like, which is something like that. I don't like that one at all. But he can start with maybe the starter set. He can just start like this, and that's fine. I don't know. But if you get like Wit, Fade, and Tune, that's fine starting off. And the reason Jester is really good is because he has combo from 2 different attacks on Wanderer. You just have to upgrade Fade to Black. He has access to Blind, which can make those enraged turns miss, which is really nice. He has a pretty strong stress heal. And if you want him to, he can reposition people, so when Rock Claw starts smacking people around, he can shove them back to where they need to be. And it's a pretty offensive play. And if he wants to just, chill out, he can spam Harvest. He has Encore as well, which can be really good. So, really awesome stuff coming out of Jester, especially Wanderer. The other path, well, Virtuoso specifically, is not a great path in this mode because, like, you really have to mitigate incoming damage more often than not, and the enemy turns, and Virtuoso doesn't really do that. It buffs you and stuff, which is nice, but like the thing is, Virtuoso wants turns, right? So you have to sit there, build up your buffs, throw out your buffs, and if you're throwing around strength and crit and all that, you have to hope that they're not enraged that turn, and you don't have to skip it or do something really suboptimal. So Virtuoso is not the best. Just overall, Soloist can kind of do okay, but Soloist really likes longer fights, although the fights can get pretty long. So with Soloist, you want to dodge tank and then get your buff stacks and then nuke stuff. The only one that really... Do any of these ignore weaken? Like, do any of the Soloist buffs? You ignore blind and dodge, that's not weaken. Ignore block and block plus on finale, it's not weaken. Yeah, so the good part about finale is the spike damage, so you can just like burst them down, and if you set it up, and you're able to keep them up front, right, you can just finale 3 times and probably wipe out the map, maybe. But the issue with this is Soloist kind of wants a team that can function with him moving around and getting stacks and all that, and it's not guaranteed to happen. Dodge tanking, not the best thing, so Soloist is kind of definitely not worth spending money to get. Mezzo. Mezzo, if you take off like Tune, is pretty good. Right, you get the solo finale set up here, and you still have the extra turn Encore, so it's like, that's pretty much what you're looking at. You want someone else to stress heal. But yeah, solo, try and bleed them. Finale, blow them up for a ton of damage, and then like Encore, other stuff. So Mezzo and Wanderer are still fine. The other two kind of struggle. But I mean, A's still great for him. Next is... let's see. Leper. Okay. Leper is so close to being an A tier unit in this that I almost want to. Okay, so the one thing holding Leper back from actual like A rank and just an overall really good set of stuff is his speed. He's slow, which means he can get bullied pretty easily. And looking at Leper here, so this is Tempest, but let's look at Wander. Really good skills for Leper against Beastmen are Chop. Big damage is really good because you might 1 or 2 tap some of those smaller Beastmen, and that's huge. Like, he knocks out a crit on like turn 1, then they're just dead, which is awesome. Withstand, not that good because taunt's not great, but you do get block every turn, so that's okay. And you get some dot res, but let's be real, he's got He's got 10 bleed, 10 blight. That 15 ain't doing anything. Even the 25's not doing too much. Like, withstand's almost bait. But yeah, chop's okay. Reflection, you don't want to use this unless, I don't know, maybe it's upgraded so you get the debuff res, but you don't want to use that either. Solemnity, really good. Anyone being able to keep themselves alive during a Beastman fight is very helpful because of the damage output, so him being able to heal himself up is always welcome. Intimidate, not too bad in terms of knocking out weak tokens, but the rest of it, Hue, not great. Revenge, way too slow. You vuln yourself, not worth it. Break, they don't have block tokens outside of Rock Claw. Ruin, actually not bad, but like you don't want the turn to go long enough, or the fight to go long enough for Ruin to get like immense repeated value. Yeah. Bash, also good just because of the daze in the combo. You might stun them if they daze themselves, and you set up a combo for like the next turn. You can also immobilize those tribe walkers so they don't get enrage off moving, which is kind of cool. Like I said, in terms of what he has access to, he's almost an A tier unit. He's got 2 speed, which kind of hurts him. Tempest has way less speed and less HP in a mode where enemies hit pretty hard and you have fatigue lowering your HP more, possibly. And he only gets up to like 53%, so a coin flip in terms of debuff res. Yeah, it's definitely not the business, but definitely run Tempest. If you're gonna like leave him on defense, it'll be okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm starting to agree with the B rank now that I'm seeing this. And then Poets, you don't really get moved by the enemy. There's only like 1 stun in like the base guys. I think it's the Outrage Outcry combo. And you trade all of your damage for that. So Poet, not the greatest. Although Poet's pretty good against the Rock Claws for movement, but someone else might get shuffled instead and throw his ass out. Monarch, unplayable. Alright. So yeah, B is good. B is good for him. Take a look at the next one. We have Man-at-Arms. Oh man, that's a toughie. Let's take a look at him first. It's definitely at the top. Is it A or is it S though? Is the question. So Man-at-Arms, what's good for him in Kingdoms? Bolsters, okay still. Hold the line, stuns, Rampart stuns, so those are good. Got 2 speed, not the greatest. Defender, you know, those block tokens get eaten up pretty quick. And like the Huntsman can knock off the other one. Retribution, Taunt not the best, Riposte not the best either, so Retribution kind of bad. Command, they don't blind you. They do weaken you, so like you counteract the weaken, so that's okay. Standfast is good just because of regenerating block. Really doesn't have much else going for it. Like I said, Taunt's not the greatest thing to have, but it regenerates block, which is nice. Courageous Abandon, really just don't get the time to do this at all. Strategic Withdrawal combos enemies, actually pretty good. And then you have Bellow that gets rid of Riposte and crit and lowers enemy speed. So actually he is A tier, or he's S tier, so he is good. Looking at the other things, Sergeant's got all these weird buffs going on. The extra speed's kind of nice. Removing negative tokens actually pretty good. And we have what? Command combos everything, so Command's actually pretty good. Crush heals the team off combo, not bad. Retribution, actually really good in terms of like finishing off enemies, because the fatigue will keep lowering your HP on anyone that's been traveling around, and you get hit so hard in this mode that crits or crit tokens are going to pop up because you're under, you know, quarter life. Standfast is pretty good upgraded actually if you throw it on a tank or just anyone, because that's a lot of resistance against enemies that like to move, bleed, and blight you. They do bleed, they're goats, but yeah. So Sergeant's pretty good. Bulwark gets access to Immobilize if you want to immobilize those tribe walkers. Gets access to stun with Hold the Line. But the issue with Bulwark is you got to keep your block tokens up against enemies that are constantly slamming into you, and in the case of Huntsman, they, knock off multiple tokens, so not great. Vanguard. How is Vanguard? You keep cutting your HP, and your dot res against enemies that do a lot of damage and blight you all the time, and riposte for, like, no joke, 8 to 15 on crit. And you're lowering your HP, your max HP, in a mode where you get your max HP cut by fatigue. So actually, Vanguard's pretty bad, I would say. But even with 2 bad paths, the base kit works. He has access to stuns, he has combo. He's self-sufficient. He can regenerate blocks, so he's not too punished by the Huntsman shenanigans. So yeah, I'll say he's S. He's good. Next, Occultist. Man, I had to check myself because I wanted to drop his ass off the face of the earth, because he is horrible on defense. Absolutely horrible in a lot of ways. The thing with the Occultist is, since Kingdoms picks, you pick your first 4, Kingdoms picks the other 8. So if you have all the DLC, 3 characters get cut. If Plague Doctor gets cut, if Vestal gets cut, and you're stuck with, like, Occultist and Flag, and maybe Crusader, it's painful. Because having to use Weird in Kingdoms is so abysmally awful that you never want to have to do that. Even with Ritualists, it's still dicey. The reason is, you have enemies that stockpile damage over time. They're constantly just, pushing you into dangerous areas of HP, and they, one of them has a riposte. Like, they just put out so much damage that a gamble heal that can bleed you also for 9 or 6 damage after is... You never want to press this button. Like, you just never want to press this unless you are that desperate. Like, this alone makes me hate this character here, but looking at all the other good stuff Occultist has, he has double stun on upgraded Abyssal with unchecked power tokens, really good. The combo and double weak off Weakening Curse is fantastic. The disruption and the combo off Demon's Pull is great, and Vuln Hex is really good. So that's kind of where a lot of it stops. Malediction is okay, but really you don't need it for how fast they die, unless you're fighting like a boss or a Rock Claw or something like that. Anamnesis, no. Burning Stars, hope you don't get weakened, because they throw out so much weaken and block doesn't matter that Burning Stars isn't the greatest. I'd rather use my unchecked power on stunning. And Chaotic Offering is a bit dangerous. That's for Wanderer. Looking at Ritualist, you can use Weird if you want to. I still don't necessarily recommend it. You vuln yourself on turn start, which is incredibly dangerous. And your debuffs do a little bit more to buff you too sometimes. So they're still... Actually, you know what? Weakening Curse on Ritualist gets rid of Crit and Strength. Does it do that on Wanderer? It's been a while. Yeah, it does. Okay, so Weakening Curse is really good. Just in general. Yeah. Alright. So Ritual is pretty good. Warlock, very dangerous because you don't want to lower your HP ever with anything. But in return, you get really good damage on like Abyssal and stuff, so okay. And you can generate up unchecked power. Aspirant, no. Just no. The bonus HP is the saving grace, but you get a little bit of bonus damage on the melees. Like, you're not using Anamnesis. Binding Shadows is okay. Sackstaff's still fine. But you lose dot res. Or not dot res, debuff res. I did do a double take, because I know you lose debuff res penetration, but then I saw this down here. I was like, what? Yeah. Yeah, you lose the dot res pierce, or the debuff res piercing on your Weakening Curse, Vuln Hex, and stuff like that. You just get combo, which is alright. You can remove the stuff. Like, you're not upgrading this for aspirant. So Occultist, not great. If you find time to grab him and unlock some skills, maybe give him a path and like upgrade Abyssal Artillery, then he's alright, but still not great. Who's next? We're almost out here. Plague Doctor is an interesting one. So I'm going to put her in A. There's a couple reasons. So PD got a very justified and deserved nerf of making Plague Grenade a one-turn cooldown. She needed that. She needs more nerfing, but like that's a start. The one-turn cooldown is only on Wanderer and Alchemist. But on Surgeon, where it doesn't matter, you don't have it. And Physician, where it still doesn't matter, you don't have it. With that said, no, Plague Doctor as a character is not gutted. She's not dead. She's not awful. She's still insane. Alchemist is still insane. Encore Plague Grenade turn 1 is still insane. Alright. Just get the damage rolling on someone that's faster to set it up. It's still good. The only difference is she has to do something else in between, which gives you access to like Mag Rain, Blinding Gas, Noxious Blast. It just doesn't matter. You know, you only need like 2 Plague Grenades anyway to kill most backlines, so. Wanderer struggles. And the reason is that Beastmen have very high Blight res, so Plague Grenade's pretty much a no-go. And Noxious Blast kind of sucks. Alchemist gets around those problems, but Alchemist also has the HP penalty, which means you are in danger of a random Huntsman Axe critting you for 23 and she drops dead. Not quite, but, you know, Death's Door. The reason also that Death's Door is very imminent and problematic in Kingdoms is that you don't have the altar buffs, so everyone has 60. You have to upgrade an inn to the point where you can buy hero stats, and you have to buy Deathblow Resist for your people. So DBR is scarce, and having heroes die to a random crit is way more likely. Stuff she has that is good, Ounce of Prevention, surprisingly. The enemies don't get dot piercing on Escalation, which is great. Hope that goes away from Ordainment, but they don't get the inherent 10 dot res piercing, and they also don't get the bonus extra damage or round or whatever it is that Ordainment gives them too. They just get damage and HP. That means that Ounce is actually good, surprisingly. So if you want to upgrade this, you know, it's actually a good target for it. Since they throw out a lot of weaken tokens, and you get Death's Door and all that, the occasional random ass stun, then IS upgrade is still really good. Battlefield Medicine upgrade is really good because dots like to go flying around when you fight them. And it's relatively it. Like if you have a lot of burn or something, Cause of Death can do whatever, but that's about it. Oh, and Disorienting Blast can daze and stun, which is helpful. So Wanderer doesn't have too much going on. Alchemist, you can still run the normal shenanigans, right? Like this still works fine, this works fine, and that works fine. Like no issue. Cause of Death also fine. Surgeon. Surgeon actually gets better. Surgeon's better than Alchemist in this game mode because the on-hit damage is pretty good, the strong bleed is really good, having some extra healing is really good, and then having max HP is also very good. You get access to some better stuff. And you don't care about the Blight because of the resist, and you also get lower penetration, so that kind of opens you up for some really interesting movesets. Something like this. Physician, not great. Like, the Beastmen put out so much damage that you want to, no joke, just kill like one a turn. But you get access to Disoblast, which has some res piercing, but they don't have high resistance anyway. So the Emboldening Vapors buff is pretty good. Ounce is good. Ounce is better, right? So Katie, not the powerhouse she was. Still has a couple things that are good, but definitely not what she was for this mode. Especially with that small but justified nerf. There we got 2 more. Oops. And surprisingly, Runaway is one of the best characters in this game mode. I'm just double checking the resistance and stuff too. So all of the Beastmen have pretty low burn res across the board. Sometimes it's tied with bleed or bleeds lower in the case of the shaman, but like actually in the walker, but they don't have high burn res. Something else that's really good against Beastmen, damage over time, because they still take damage on the Berserk turn. Something else very good against Beastmen. I should probably bring up Runaway while I'm talking. Something else very good against Beastmen. Blind. Skips the enrage turn. 2 blinds, even better. Combo. Everyone likes combo in this mode. Run and hide can clear dots and keep her alive when upgraded. So those huntsmen can't just snipe her ass. Cauterize finds targets against the rock claws because they bleed. And like I said, the burn's just consistently pretty good damage output. So really just because of like these 4 moves, right? Dragonfly's good, Firefly, Smokescreen, Run and Hide. You don't really want to ransack because you don't want to give Tribe Walkers tokens, but like other than that, like she just has some really good stuff. She doesn't need Arsonist to get through the resistance, which is nice. Orphan's a bit of a gamble because you lose max HP. And front rank Orphan with Ransack isn't as easy to pull off. Survivor, still a meme because you get the res pierce decrease, but Arsonist, insane. Like one of the easiest ways to win in this mode is to like run Arsonist. Like she'll just bulldoze every Beastmen fight possible. And she's like so good to the point where I might S her. Just looking at this. I really want to. I had her an A on my first run, but like just looking at this, right? Low burn res, double blind, combo, vuln, which gets through the Berserk hit, or the Berserk resist. She has so much going on. It's actually surprising. I cannot believe she just jumped up that high because of a different set of enemies. Plus, with how Kingdoms works and the shorter biomes and all that, she doesn't have to suffer in the Sprawl. You don't have to have her fight Librarian either. You can show up to the Sprawl with a bunch of baubles and like the Hoarder Decoder signal pretty easily. There are a couple quests that guarantee spawn Hoarders. At least one. But Hoarders are pretty common too. So she can go in there and just buy the best shit. And you find a lot of trinkets late game too. So, or like mid and late game. So she has a lot going on. I think she is us. That's crazy. Yeah, she's really good in this mode. Alright, the final one, Vestal. I'm going to put her in B. So let's see. Vestal. Let's see. Issues with Vestal. She might... You could argue A in some cases, actually. Actually, she might be A, now that I'm looking at it, so... Things that are good with Vestal here are Illumination can daze targets, so you can either help navigate an enraged turn a bit better, or a berserk turn a bit better, or get a stun if they weaken themselves. Judgments does burn damage, charged up, which is okay. Divine Grace, you know, after losing some max health from fatigue and all that, Divine Grace can just be a full heal, which is nice. Consecration of Fortitude, pretty good because it's regenerating defensive tokens, so Huntsmen don't snipe them. Ministration's really good. Mace Bash, not that good. Sanctuary Guard is way better than Taunt, surprisingly, which I really enjoy. So you can guard critical targets. Consecration of Light, really helps you just snipe kills early. So like, you know, you have your Leper up front, you just drop Consec of Light on him, he gets, you know, a strength token, he just one tap a Huntsman or something like that. Really good. Divine Comfort kind of struggles because there's so much damage over time that comes out that this just gets smothered instantly. The mantra is whatever, but Confessor, removing all positive tokens. They don't generate too many positives outside of like strength and sometimes block. Judgment, dazing, and stunning though. Confessor Judgment, really, really, really good. And then what else changes on this? Handle Light, spreading double weak around is actually not bad at all, but you can also trigger Riposte more easily, and Riposte moves Tribe Walkers and all that, so you don't necessarily want to do that. Then Mantra is really good. So Mantra, you know, removing negative tokens. A lot of people are going to have negatives, and being able to get rid of those is really good. So, Confessor good. Chaplain. Going to charge up quite a lot in terms of the tokens. Chaplain with Mantra being able to heal herself and guarded people. Between having Bounty Hunter, Crusader Templar if you want to, Man-at-Arms, and the Militia Fighters have guard. There are a lot of sources of guards. There's a lot of chances to also proc Mantra on 2 or even 3 people. It was really nice. Handle Light on this path. Hands out block, which is actually pretty good against the enemy damage. And then Ministrations up front, still insane. Still really good. So, Chaplain, pretty good. Seraph. We're starting to kind of see the cracks in Seraph now that the other 2 paths are really good. But Seraph is still fine. You get the longer consecrations, and you get this mantra that heals people with consecrations. So it's alright. But yeah, I think that is it for this. I'll leave it here. Thanks for watching. As I said, let me know what you're thinking down below. Definitely a lot of cool stuff emerging in terms of kingdoms, not just hero strategies, hero teams. Like, Kingdoms actually offers different ways to approach situations, which is really nice too. So it's a really, really good game mode. Great. Yeah, that's it though. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.